I think that what we need is to get back to these radical roots of the Communist Party, of this organising with and response to community activism. And so I guess that leaves us with the things in which Anne said about the movements from the 40s, 50s up to the 60s were essentially about, I guess, trying to break the shackles of these policies of assimilation and these policies of protectionism.
The people who stand with me on this stage I regard as giants.
Thomas Mayo.
Thomas Mayo written a handbook called the Voice to Parliament Handbook. All the detail you need.
Thomas Mayo is a signatory to the Uluru Statement from the Heart, but was also entrusted with the physical document.
Mayo is part of the referendum working group.
He spent 18 months travelling around Australia to garner support for an Indigenous voice to Parliament.
And I tell you what, we are sick of governments not listening to our voice. We are going to use the rule book of the nation to force them.
There is nothing more powerful than building a First Nations voice, a black institution, a black political force to be reckoned with.
Keep going until we change the system, until we tear down the institutions that harm our people.
And also to pay respects to the elders of the Communist Party, who I think, without a doubt, have played a very important role in our activism.
You know, this is the first step. It's a vital step. Pay the rent, for example. You know, how do we do that in a way that is transparent and that it actually sees reparations and compensation to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people?
The power in the voice is that it creates the ability for First Nations to go forth with coherent positions on what legislation needs to be created, what legislation needs to be amended, and punish politicians that ignore our advice.
This is a modest request.
Authorised by Matthew Sheehan, Advance Australia, Canberra.
To understand this concept of the voice is the first step in redistributing power.
So to pay respects to the elders of the Communist Party, who I think, without a doubt, have played a very important role in our activism.
You know, this.
Hi Australia, my name is TEELA REID.
I was part of the constitutional dialogue process.
TEELA has been there in the heart of creating a framework for rethinking our constitution.
Referendum engagement group member TEELA REID.
You have all these remarkable people like Thomas Mayo and TEELA REID.
We have to understand this concept of the voice is the first step in redistributing power.
There does need to be these tough decisions and reparations for what First Nations peoples have lost. This notion of reconciliation, it's not enough.
The voice isn't ready. We begin to demolish the system that continue to oppress us.
All these remarkable people.
What we need is to get back to these radical roots of the Communist Party.
It's going to be very difficult once we succeed for a government to ignore this voice. It will be powerful.
Authorised by Matthew Sheehan, Advance Australia, Canberra.